Much of the Ohio Valley will be going through a severe weather event today. We have an initial event that is going on as we speak, and we have a secondary event that will bring with it the threat of damaging winds, hail, and even tornadoes. All right, now starting off, we're going to take a look at our National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center outlook, and this is a recent update to it. We've officially been upgraded to a moderate risk. That is a 4 out of 5 severe weather day risk here for portions of the Ohio Valley. You can see for portions of southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, southwestern Indiana, we have western Kentucky, and all the way up into northwestern Tennessee there, and including portions of northeastern Arkansas. All of these areas need to be on high alert today for severe weather. We do have a widespread event, mostly damaging winds, but we do also expect the threat for tornadoes and damaging hail. Now you can see here, we have our marginal risk indicated by the green. That includes portions of the mid-Atlantic, much of the eastern half of the United States, and including portions of some of the Great Plains there, including Kansas and all the way down into Texas. So a lot of these areas have that marginal threat, mainly characterized by damaging winds and the threat for hail, and possibly an isolated tornado or two are not out of the question. Then we see that yellow slight risk, that is the next level up. This is where things start to get a little more serious. We see more of that tornado threat within this area. We see damaging wind threat and the threat of hail. Now, as we get into our orange enhanced risk, this is where things need to be watched. Okay, so this is where that really starts to become serious, and this is where more of the significant severe weather is expected. So we are expecting damaging winds, mainly straight line winds, but we do see the threat for tornadoes and hail as well within that area. And finally, within the moderate risk, this is where you got to really pay attention today. Be on high alert and make sure that you're weather aware today, because we do have that threat for large hail, damaging winds, and numerous tornadoes are possible within this region today. All right, now moving on to our National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center tornado outlook here, you can see that we are all the way up to a 4 out of 7 on the scale there. That's indicated by that red. So much of the Ohio Valley is included in that green 2% risk. That is a 1 out of 7 on the tornado risk scale. And as you can see there, that stretches from portions of eastern Oklahoma all the way up into Indiana and Ohio, and portions of southwestern Pennsylvania, and even into West Virginia. Then we have that 5% risk there, or that 2 out of 7 risk on the scale. And then we see that hatched area for the yellow. Now, this is where things start to get a little more interesting, okay? You may be wondering, what does that black dashed line region mean? And basically, that means that the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center is indicating the likelihood for EF2 or greater tornado potential within this region. And that's characterized by whatever risk that's encompassing. So we see the yellow risk is a 3 out of 7. That indicates that higher potential for tornado development. And then we see that final red area, which is the 4 out of 7 risk, and this is where things really have to be watched. Within these areas, we see the potential for the development of numerous tornadoes today, and we have to be on high alert for that potential. Now, moving on to our damaging wind threat, we are looking at the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center wind outlook, and this scale goes from a 1 to 5. So here you can see we're going to start off in that brown risk region here. We go all the way up to a 4 out of 5 risk here on the damaging wind scale. So you can see the wind threat is very high today with these storms. These are going to be pretty impactful storms with straight line winds. However, let's start off in this first region. So we have a little area isolated up here in northern Nebraska and southern South Dakota there. We do see that that's a 5% risk region, or a 1 out of 5. So some potential for some damaging wind there. Nothing too crazy though with those storms. Now, as we move throughout much of the mid-Atlantic, some portions of the southeast there, and throughout much of the Ohio Valley, we do see that threat for that marginal wind threat. This is an area where you kind of have to watch. Again, nothing too extreme there, but we are expecting that threat for damaging winds as we move into the afternoon and evening hours of today. Now, headed into that second region there, we have that 2 out of 5, which is the yellow there. This is where the threat for damaging winds kind of increases a bit, and we do want to watch here. Again, you want to watch in all of these risk areas, but this is where we see that increase to more of the substantial wind threat. So again, that threat for damaging winds exists in this yellow risk region. Definitely want to watch as we move into the evening hours. Now, within the red area here, this is a 3 out of 5. This is where things, again, start to get a little more iffy. This is where our enhanced risk is issued, and we want to watch this. This is where those big time damaging winds could be a threat this evening, and you want to be on high alert. Make sure you know where your safe place is in the event that you have to take shelter during a severe weather event. And finally, we have that hatched risk area that includes this pink 4 out of 5 region here. Now, this is encompassed by that hatched risk area. Again, that hatched area indicated by the black dashed lines. that is encompassing both portions of the red risk area, which is a 3 out of 5, and then we have our 4 out of 5 indicated by the pink, which is entirely covered by this. This indicates a pretty substantial threat for damaging winds into this evening, and this is an area where you are really going to want to pay attention to that damaging wind threat as we move into the evening hours this evening. Now, the final outlook that we're going to be going over is our hail threat here. This is similar to the wind threat scale, where we have a 1 to 5 scale here. Now, we're going to start off again in that brown region. This shows a lot of the areas, again, similar to the wind threat. Where you usually have wind, you usually have hail, and they both kind of work with each other. So we do see that region again for northern Nebraska and southern South Dakota. Not much of a hail threat here. You may see a little bit of sparse pea-sized hail, maybe even up to some larger sized hail. Very moderate though, so not too much going on there. I wouldn't expect anything too damaging up in that region. We also see another brown risk region for much of the Ohio Valley into portions of Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, and West Virginia. Over there into portions of Kentucky and over into portions of Kansas and Texas. Now we start to move up into portions of that increased threat with that yellow 2 out of 5 risk region there. We want to watch this area pretty closely. So this is where you start to have to watch for that larger size hail to develop. This is where you will start to see that. Now also note that some of these areas over portions of Arkansas in this yellow risk region, that 2 out of 5, are encompassed within that hatched risk region. That indicates the higher potential for some damaging hail threats going into tonight. Now we do see that red 3 out of 5 risk area. That's another area we're going to want to watch. That's where that substantial hail threat starts to become more of an issue. Some larger hail could be threatening to property. Now we do see that final risk area indicated by the pink. That is the 4 out of 5, and that is encompassed by the hatched risk region. That's where you're going to want to really pay attention. A very substantial hail threat is within this region. Some larger hail could be possible into this evening, and you want to be very weather aware when that comes through. Now, when considering storm development, we got to consider that storm energy, or known as CAPE. And here you can see, we see a lot of those widespread bright red and pink colors. That indicates around 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram. Even some areas even reaching near 4,500 to 5,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, and that indicates a lot of storm energy potential near the surface. We're looking at surface-based CAPE here, and that basically means we have a lot of energy for these storms to use. The more energy you have for these storms to use, the more likely they are to thrive and survive in that environment. And you can see here, we have a widespread region of that across portions of the Ohio Valley, and that's only going to increase into the evening hours, indicating that instability is increasing across the area, which will likely lead to more severe weather into the evening hours this evening. Now, another factor we want to look at when talking about storm development is wind shear, and this is our bulk shear indicated by the 0 to 6 kilometer area of our atmosphere. Now, this is basically showing us where we have change in direction and speed of wind with height. And the more wind shear that we have in our atmosphere, the greater the storm development will likely be. And that is due to the updrafts of the storms becoming stronger with increased wind shear, which can also lead to the increased threat of tornado development coupled with higher energy. So what we need to watch is this area here. In these areas, we see widespread areas of about 40 to 50 knot wind shear indicated by those blues and pinks there. And then we see the threat for roughly 75 to 80 knot wind shear across the area there, including portions of that moderate risk region around Kentucky, southern Illinois, and areas of northwestern Tennessee there. Those are areas where we likely have to watch for the greatest tornado development and the strongest storms this evening due to that higher wind shear. Now, moving into our storm timing here, we are looking at the HRRR forecast model, simulated reflectivity, and here you can see that initial line that we were talking about at the beginning of the video. That's the one that's moving through right now. That's going to head up into portions of Pennsylvania tonight, and that's going to head out into the mid-Atlantic and Northeast over the night. Now, that severe weather threat decreases as that continues to advance eastward. Now, what we do see is that next line of storms start to develop. This main threat is going to be after 9. So we're going to see around 8 to 9 o'clock, those storms start to fire over Missouri. That's where we got to watch for those initial severe storms, probably the highest tornado threat before this goes linear. So that increased tornado threat will likely be over there in Missouri, southern Illinois, and then into portions of western Kentucky and southwestern Indiana. That's where we have to watch that higher tornado threat, where those initial storms start to fire. Then we see that go linear. You can see how that creates one giant long line of storms. That's where we begin to see that damaging wind threat, and coupled with the hail threat. We will notice some hail threat initially with those first developing storms, but then we will see that continue with that line of storms that advances through Kentucky, Tennessee, and into portions of West Virginia into tonight, into tomorrow. So really the timing of this is going to be anywhere after 9 o'clock tonight or 8 o'clock Central Daylight Time. That's kind of when we're looking at these storms to develop, and anytime after that, really till about 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning is when we'll see that greatest severe weather threat, and then we will start to lose that threat as we head into the nighttime hours, and that advances eastward into the mid-Atlantic. I want to thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. A big thanks to today's sources, Pivotal Weather, where all those forecast models seen in today's video came from, and the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center, where those outlooks came from at the beginning of the video. I do want to thank our channel members, Chris, Betty, thank you for supporting the channel continuously, and if you did enjoy today's video, I would ask you to consider subscribing for more of these forecasts free of charge, and I would ask you also consider following the Weather at a Glance official Facebook page for more inside information and complimentary personal forecasts when you message me on my Facebook page. Again, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.